The story begins with a young guy named Darren on top of his bicycle, riding his way to the school. Meanwhile, a girl, whose name is Lynn, looked as if she was lost and looking for her classroom in the school area. On her way to find the classroom, Lynn accidentally bumped into Darren's shoulders while the phone was in her hands. Due to balance loss, Lynn and her phone almost fell from the stairs. The guy tried to look for a way to save her and the phone. Meanwhile, Lynn hesitantly grabbed Darren's tie and their lips met in an instant, suggesting their first kiss. She apologized to Darren, but he could not help but ignore her. Lynn also took a picture of Darren as he walks away. Everyone had gathered into a school meeting where she sees the Darren, who has been represented as an outstanding student. Lynn was shocked and nervous seeing this was the guy she kissed earlier this morning. Lynn suddenly falls in love with Darren, a student with a high IQ score and whose class section usually belongs to the best students of the school. It had been 2 years. Lynn was still on live with Darren and usually watch him on the news on social media sites. Later, trying to get rid of beehives in the class, she ended up checking her phone. Lynn finds out about Darren's arrival. He is coming back to the same building, belonged to the bright students. Many students, including Lynn herself, began running to be able to see their idol Dar and in reality. But since the section has security system, it had stopped many from making their dream a reality. The students with high IQ were the ones to enter the class and Lynn ended up staring at him from distance. We can see her joining a seminar in which Darren was speaking. There she falls in love with him even more. She was sure that one day she will be able to confess her feelings for him. Somehow she heard a news about Daryl liking a girl, which made her really upset and sad. Soon after, Lynn's friend suggested her to not forget about dating Darren. Later, we can see a young man named Kenji approaching Lynn. However, Lynn was determined to confess her love toward Darren and didn't want to give up too easily. Lynn enters the section of building for the confession of her love towards him. She sees the opportunity to when the alarm system in their school goes off, hence turning the electricity along with all the technology. She hesitantly runs into the building and discovers the door open. Lynn runs inside the building and there she finds Darren. She begins to express her love towards him, but Darren rejects her feelings and says he didn't like stupid girls. Lynn became upset and hopeless after hearing him. Somehow students from the class were able to record the whole incident on their phones and makes fun of her. While teachers also knew about Lynn's feeling for Darren and tell her to not waste Darren's time. Next morning, she was working outside. Her drunk father came and suggested that they will have a house one day. But suddenly the house itself collapses because of bad construction. The video it happening goes viral on social media, hence making her the main object of attention once again. Her friends tried to help her out by making a fundraiser event, but this made her feel even worse when Darren along with his friends walked by Lynn along with her friends, who were F-class students. With sarcasm, they think to themselves that the students of the F-class were not smart. This hurt Lynn's ego and she ended up challenging Darren that her group will be in top 100 list soon. Soon after, she was seen helping her father collecting things from their destroyed house. Lynn's father reveals about his friend who gave them shelter while their house was built again. Both of them had been taken away from there to his friend's house. Lynn was really surprised to see this big and luxurious house as felt as if she was very lucky to be there. Man-wife introduced her son, who didn't like Lynn or her father's presence at all. His mother scolded him and tell him to be nice to the guests. Man's wife was very excited because of Lynn and her father. There she asked if Lynn could marry her oldest son, who was a brilliant student in school. But Lynn said no to him since she liked another guy at school. Same night, she finds out that the oldest son was no other than Daryl himself. Darren told her to keep it a secret. Meanwhile, she was being pushed to work towards their challenge for the top 100 student list. At this point, Lynn left hopeless because she could not win the challenge since it was difficult for her to learn. She feels even worse when she sees Darren along with Cecilia, even though they weren't dating. Later, she gets a text from Darren's mother on her cell phone. This makes her realize something and she gets an idea to fulfill her challenge to enter in the top 100 students, which will prove to Darren she was after all not stupid. To save herself from the embarrassment, Lynn goes to Darren and begs him to teach her learning, to which he reluctantly agrees, because Lynn had a video of Darren getting insulted by his mother. This ends up in a deal where he will help her if she deleted the video from her phone. From that point, Daryl was helping Lynn in every way possible. He even used some ways so that she can understand much easier. Even at the school, Lynn looked so serious studying that she seemed to not pay attention to her surroundings. This resulted in Kenji being near her all the time so that she won't fall apart. The day came and the exam started. Lynn looked as if she felt very confident, but she wasn't sure if she could answer all of them. Meanwhile, Darren looked tensed about her and hoped for the best that she will probably do good in exam. It was the result announcement time, where many ranks had been announced. Lynn walked up there and relieved to see Darren being on the first place. She would have felt bad if his ranking fell because of him focusing on her. Meanwhile, Lynn had managed to take the 100th place and met the criteria for the top 100 students. Their school had a setup for athletics carnival, where Lynn's and Darren's class faced each other in a marathon race. Due to Lynn's mistake, Darren's class ended up winning the race. parents. Darren's mother comes at the school and reveals everyone about her living at their house. There, everyone started to question the relation between the two, while Darren acted as if Lin was working for him as an assistant. This made Kenji really nervous about the situation and trigger him to have a fight with Darren. Watching these things end up getting a toll on her, and she ends up friendship with both Darren and Kenji. She leaves after saying she did not like Darren. Later on, a friend of Darren showed a video of her, hence triggering her as well. Lin shows him a video of Darren dancing in women's clothes while wearing a wig. This made him really annoyed, and he ended up pulling Lin into the field. When both of them were alone, she ended up revealing her love towards him. There, she regret liking someone like Darren himself, who was arrogant and selfish. She tells him that she will never bother him again and look for another man. When Lin was about to leave, Darren took control over her and kissed her lips. At this point, both of them have been graduated from the school and getting ready for the college exam. Darren was recalling incidents where Lin was having an accident. This makes her unable to focus on studies. Same night, he gets into a fight with his own father due to the urge that his father gave him for study and go United States to take over his company. Meanwhile, Darren wanted to be a veterinarian. She leaves the house in sheer anger, while thinking as if she herself was the reason it all had happened. She ended up apologizing to her parents and went after him. She reveals to him that she will leave the house soon and apologize to him for her actions. Same day, Daryl left the house to live on his own without the pressure of his own parents. We are moved to another scene where both Lin and Darren are living their own life while studying at the same university. Lin was still thinking about Darren since she had barely seen him for a long time. Not too long after, she figures out that Darren was working part-time in a veterinary clinic. There, Darren seemed to be cold and all, but she was very worried of him. It is the evening time. Lin ends up following Darren up to his apartment and see the same girl called Cecilia and assumes if they were dating. It came out that she was there for a business purpose. Darren spends some time with Lin and gets a call that his father was ill, so he takes over the business while his father was going through a treatment. This makes him stressed a lot. He was showing care for Lin, but also focused on business. Darren decides to marry another woman to be able to save his father's business while throwing away Lin. Lin also rejects her love and walk away from there. Meanwhile, Darren's parents suggest him to marry a girl only if he really wants to. It has been a year and Lin comes across Darren's social media. He later posts about a gathering in which he will speak, so Lin goes there. She enters the hall and finds no one but herself, where he explains only a certain people can see what he posts. This makes her realize that the posts were for her only. Darren ends up proposing to Lin and she happily agrees. A flashback happens where Daryl wakes up from sleep while his time of teaching Lin and sees a love letter. Since that time, Darren is in love with her. We have learned that if someone is destined to be together, there is nothing that can stop that from happening. Make sure to like and subscribe for more love stories like this.